today. Florence will teach you something simple, yet life-changing. She will remind you of a truth you may have forgotten, that life is not ruled by chance. Life is ruled by law. Every word you speak, every thought you repeat, every image you hold in your mind is either building your future or destroying it. But the secret is this: you are never a victim of your thoughts unless you choose to be. This is not about positive thinking. This is not about wishful dreaming. This is about mastery. It's about understanding how your mind works and then learning how to command it with intention. Because the truth is, nothing in your life will change until you change what you allow to live in your mind. Florence Scovel Shinn called this the game of life. But it's not a game of luck. It's a game of awareness, alignment, and action. In this lesson, we will explore one of the most misunderstood spiritual laws, the law of substitution. The power to replace fear with faith, doubt with discipline, chaos with clarity. You don't have to control every thought. You only have to learn to choose again. Are you ready to remember your power? Let's begin. Florence wrote, "Every thought is a seed. And like any seed, it carries within it the exact pattern of what it will become. You cannot plant fear and harvest peace. You cannot plant doubt and reap confidence. Your mind is like fertile soil. It accepts whatever you give it. It does not question whether your thoughts are good or harmful. It simply grows whatever you allow to stay. Most people live unaware of this truth. They repeat negative thoughts every day about money, about love, about their own worth. They don't realize these thoughts are commands, spoken not once but over and over again until they become beliefs. And what you believe, you create. You cannot outwork your subconscious. You cannot hustle your way out of a mindset that still sees you as a failure or as not enough. That's why change doesn't begin in effort. It begins in thought. When Florence said that man's only enemy is fear, she wasn't referring to external danger. She was speaking of the invisible chains we build within, the mental loops, the hidden voices that say, "You can't, you shouldn't, it won't work." But if your mind can build fear, it can also build courage. If it can repeat lies, it can also repeat truth. And this is where your power begins, not in perfection, but in awareness. Once you become aware of your thoughts, you can begin to choose differently. Florence taught something that still shocks the modern mind. You cannot erase a thought. You can only replace it. That's the law of substitution. It's not just poetic, it's mechanical. Your mind cannot hold two thoughts at the same time with equal intensity. One will always overpower the other. One becomes dominant, and the other fades. Most people try to stop thinking negative thoughts. They say things like, "I shouldn't be afraid. I need to stop worrying. I have to stop thinking like this." But Florence reminds us, you do not fight darkness. You turn on the light. You don't eliminate fear by resisting it. You eliminate fear by replacing it with faith, with clarity, with new mental focus. And this is not easy, because the subconscious clings to what is familiar, even if it's painful. Fear becomes a habit. Doubt becomes a comfort zone. The mind doesn't want to let go of what it knows, but you must retrain it, not through force, but through repetition. Florence encouraged her students to speak truth even when they didn't feel it yet, to declare divine order even in chaos, to say, "There is no loss in divine mind." there is nothing to fear, because there is only power. At first, it may feel fake, but remember, your fear was once unfamiliar too. You just practiced it. Now you will practice faith. Substitution is not denial, it's direction. It means you take control of your attention. You give your mind a new command. Not just once, but every day. Until your new thought becomes your new belief, and your new belief becomes your new life. Florence believed that your spoken word is not just sound, it's a spiritual instrument, a tool, a weapon, and most of all, a choice. You may think that words are powerless, that they're just noise, but words are what shape energy into form. She wrote, "The invisible forces are ever working for man who is always pulling the strings himself, though he does not know it." Your words are those strings. They pull reality toward your dominant thoughts. They anchor your focus, and they instruct your subconscious mind on what to expect. Let me be clear. You can think quietly all day long, but when you speak something aloud, you are declaring it with authority. That's why we don't just think affirmations. We say them. We speak them out loud, even when we don't feel ready, even when we're still full of fear or resistance, because the act of speaking plants the seed more deeply than thought alone. The problem is, most people affirm the wrong things. They say, "I'm tired. I can't do this. Nothing ever works out for me." They speak these words without awareness and wonder why their lives reflect the very things they claim. Florence taught us to become conscious of every word, not to become fearful, but to become intentional. When you speak truth, not emotional truth, but spiritual truth, you're pulling yourself out of the fog. You are choosing clarity over confusion, command over chaos. So when fear comes in, you respond, "I walk by faith, not by sight." There is nothing to fear. Divine order is working now. When lack shows up, you declare, "My supply is limitless, for I am aligned with the source of all." You are not trying to convince the world. You are training your inner world to obey your higher knowing. You don't speak to describe reality. You speak to shape it. This is how you anchor the substitution process. Not just through silent thought, but through vibrating truth into form. You speak what you want to believe until your belief becomes stronger than your fear. Let me show you how this law works, not just in theory, but in real life. Story 1, the woman and the fear of losing her job. There was a woman, a single mother, working in a company that was downsizing. She began to hear rumors. Layoffs were coming. And like most people, her first response was fear. What if I lose everything? What will I do with no income? She couldn't sleep. She felt paralyzed. But she had studied Florence's teachings. And instead of surrendering to fear, she practiced substitution. Every time a thought of lack entered her mind, she would pause and say aloud, "There is no loss in divine mind. What is mine, by divine right, can never be taken." She said it at her desk. She said it in her car. She said it until the fear no longer controlled her. A week later, she was offered a new position in the same company, one that gave her better hours and more pay. Was it magic? It was mental alignment. She didn't manifest the job by begging the universe. She refused to water the weeds of fear and spoke only what she chose to believe. Story 2, the woman who couldn't let go of the past. Another woman came to Florence, heartbroken. A relationship had ended, and she was stuck in pain, repeating the same thought. He was everything. I lost my chance at love. Florence didn't tell her to suppress her grief. She told her to replace the thought. She gave her an affirmation. There is no separation in divine mind. The love that is mine now seeks me. At first, the woman resisted. The thought felt false. She was still mourning. But Florence told her, "Speak it anyway. You're not speaking to your past. You are speaking to your future." She repeated the words daily, and slowly, her emotions began to follow. Weeks later, she didn't just feel stronger, she met someone new. Someone aligned with her values, her path, and her peace. These are not miracles. They are the natural results of inner work, of mental substitution, and of a disciplined commitment to truth over reaction. You don't need to control the world. You only need to control your focus. Speak what you wish to believe until your life rises to meet your words. There is one truth that many forget. Faith without action is just fantasy. Florence was never vague about this. She taught that once you align your thoughts and your words, you must also align your steps. Spiritual power is not passive. It moves, it listens, and then it acts. She wrote, "The moment you ask, you must begin to prepare to receive. But most people wait for proof. They want signs, guarantees, permission. They say, 'I'll act once I'm sure.' But Florence says, 'You act because you are sure.' Obedience in this context doesn't mean submission to others. It means obedience to your inner knowing, to the divine instruction that whispers before logic can interrupt. You receive an intuition. Apply for the opportunity. You hear truth? Call that person. You feel a nudge. Say no, or say yes. But instead of obeying that quiet guidance, we analyze. We doubt. We delay. And we wonder why our manifestation doesn't arrive. It's not enough to substitute thoughts. You must substitute hesitation with movement. When you act in faith, you declare to the universe, "I believe so deeply, I'm willing to risk discomfort. I trust so completely, I'm willing to go first." That is obedience. That is alignment. That is how spiritual truth becomes physical change. So speak, yes. Affirm, yes. But then, move. Take the step, even if your knees shake. Because action confirms belief. And the one who acts in obedience will always walk in power. Now you know the law. Not the law of man, but the law of mind. The law of substitution. You cannot silence fear. You must speak truth louder. You cannot erase doubt. You must replace it with belief. And that belief is not born from emotion. It is born from choice. It is sustained through word. And it is proved through action. You now understand the path. First, you notice the thought. Then you replace it. Then you speak it. And then you move with it. This is not easy. It is a discipline. It is a spiritual practice. But it is also your liberation. Because when you control your focus, you control your results. When you speak with intention, you train your world to listen. And when you act in alignment with truth, you begin to live, not by default, but by design. You are not here to survive life. You are here to master it. One thought, one word, one bold step at a time. This is how you play the game. And this is how you win. This is how you play the game. And this is how you win. If this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your own power, then let this be your sign to go deeper. Subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment. Share this video with someone who's ready to rise. This space was created to awaken the voice inside you, the one that knows you were made for more. Here, we don't just talk about change, we become it. Thank you for walking this path with me. This is Florence Manifest. and you were never meant to play small.